back to the Fiercely Fueled podcast. I've got Pia Marangoni here with me, and we are talking all about cheat meals today, which is a topic that I think you and I both have a lot of opinions on.
Good morning, Kristen. Thank you so much. Yes, I have a lot of opinions on cheat meals or not having cheat meals, rather. And this is something that, strangely enough, quite a lot of my clients ask about. And so what I wanted to do is just to kind of understand or talk about the thinking and where the mindset comes from around cheat meals and this concept of cheat meals, and also why we think it may not be that helpful.
So I have to say that almost every single nutrition professional that I know of feels the way that I feel about cheat meals, which is there maybe the terminology maybe isn't so great. The idea behind them isn't so great. I don't know a single credible nutrition professional that thinks that using the term cheat meal and actually using cheat meals is a good idea. So we're going to get into that because I think that when that is brought up, when people hear us say that, they think that we're talking about them being really strict with their nutrition all of the time, which is not what that means at all.
Right. And I think for me, and you know, might be throwing you a bit of a curveball here, is I used to get really confused about cheat meal versus refeed. And, you know, they are similar but different. I suppose a cheat meal means getting in potentially more food, potentially, than you were using, which is why I was maybe considering it, confusing it with a refeed. But more than that, it implies that whatever you're doing is bad, or whatever you're doing is good, and then whatever you deviate to, if you want to say in inverted commas, is bad. So anything that doesn't fit your definition of good or healthy is, and something that you want to enjoy, has therefore become bad. And now food has got kind of like a moral attachment, which is really confusing for me because food is food. You know, it's not good or bad. It's not, it doesn't have any kind of morality. But it's very interesting the what we attach to food and what emotions and what kind of, you know, if you're good, then you're not cheating on your food. So it kind of introduces a whole lot of other negative connotations for me about, well, you know, if you have something that is maybe hyperpalatable or has a lot more calories or is maybe not so as nutrient dense as we would like it to be, is that bad? It's not bad. I think I definitely think there's a place in someone's diet for something delicious, but it's almost been demonized to enjoy these things, you know, from my perspective.
Right. I find that when we talk about that cheat meal, exactly like you said, it suddenly starts to put morality on our food, which, you know, we're big proponents of including all different types of foods in our diets, foods that we enjoy, foods that are healthy. You know, the foods serve various different purposes. And so making sure that we're always including foods that we enjoy in our diet, I think is really good. But you brought up a really good point of the refeed versus the cheat. So a refeed is which we utilize a lot of refeeds in Fiercely Fueled with our clients. The refeed is a very strategic thing, right? It's not just go out and eat however much you want. It's controlled and it serves a very specific purpose. Usually to improve recovery. And we usually do that through increasing carbohydrates pretty substantially for a day is how we usually do that. And so a cheat meal is has this connotation of being a free-for-all where you just go out and eat whatever you want, and then kind of feel bad about it, right? Because you're like, oh, I had this cheat meal. And the thing that I struggle with cheat meals, aside from the fact that it's like already has the connotation of putting morality on our food and our nutrition and our diets, is that it tends to lead to people having this all or nothing mindset about their food. They're either on their plan or they're off their plan, or they're either adherent to their plan or they're cheating on their plan. Why can't we just have an untracked meal or an untracked day? Like, that's the terminology that I prefer to use is, yeah, you're going out to dinner with some friends or your husband or whoever. Just have an untracked meal, eat foods that you enjoy, and move on.
I love that as well, is because it kind of gives you the power back. And, oftentimes when I have clients that are maybe going through a particularly difficult phase at work-wise, or they're traveling, or they're on holiday, we agree that this is we can scale back on the way we manage things, and we can evolve and plan for these type of things. And I think if you're only ever following a meal plan and you're only ever choosing what you want to eat when you have a day off or a cheat plan, you're not learning how to manage food in relation to what's going on. And for me, I think you mentioned it as well, there's a big aspect in terms of education and making informed decisions and saying, well, is this, given where I am at this point in my life, with the stress that I have, with the goals that I have on my horizon, I am now empowered to make a choice which will support that goal, whatever that be. And sometimes the choice may be go and have an untracked meal, have a lovely anniversary dinner with your husband. We need you to do these things because you can't be on all the time. You can't be tracking all the time either. And I also think that circles back into your points around, the cheat meals being very black or white is supporting a very all or nothing kind of approach to nutrition. It's kind of, well, you're either on plan or you're cheating, but at no point do you kind of work in the middle ground. And I always say to my clients that there is no black and white in terms of nutrition. It's like either you're not eating at all, nothing, that's the one side of the spectrum, or you're dialing it in and you're getting it 100% perfect day in and day out. And I have yet to meet anyone who can do that forever. So you are always in the kind of the gray zone, the in-between zone. So the question is, where do you want to put yourself on your scale, on this kind of scale of 100% adherence to not eating? Okay, we don't advocate not eating, of course. But, you're always in the gray. And once you kind of get your head around the fact that this is actually this is fluid and it's constantly evolving and it's dynamic, it kind of gives you a lot more power to make better food choices. And this concept of a cheat meal it loses traction. It becomes quite irrelevant,
Exactly. When you are able to put in those foods that you would have saved for a cheat meal or a cheat day, which could become very quickly a cheat weekend and a cheat week. It tends to have this spiral effect because you're looking at it in terms of, I can only have this food at this one meal. So when we give you the power back, or you take back that power to say, I could technically have ice cream every day if I want to, and work it into your plan. And that's not a problem. And that is very empowering. And that's when you start to learn how to actually make nutrition fit your lifestyle. So many times people come to us and they want to make changes to their nutrition, and they get 4 weeks in and then they fall completely off the rails. Why? Because they were only looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, I can do this for a very short period of time. And people can't, as you said, people can't be perfect for extended periods of times, nor would we want them to. We want to see almost those quote unquote mistakes that we wouldn't call mistakes. But we want to see people fitting in those foods into their lifestyle. If your nutrition plan is not something that you can adhere to long term, it is not going to serve you. It might serve you for a very short period of time, but in the long run, it's going to be causing problems because you're not learning. And I think that's That's the biggest thing that I know you and I and our other coaches at Fiercely Fueled are such advocates for is learn how to make the nutrition fit within the life that you have. Now, sure, if you're in a phase where you're dieting, which is a short-term phase, right? We don't like to do long dieting periods, a short-term phase, then yeah, there's going to have to be some concessions. You're probably not going to be able to fit in ice cream every day. But that's short-term to reach a certain goal. Long-term, then we need to figure out how do we make it fit your lifestyle.
And 100%. And you know what I love? And I love the word, you use the word concession as opposed to sacrifice. And it's really about choosing what I'm going to concede on. And I think, again, it goes back to the way that we like to work with clients and we like to coach people and we like to give people the knowledge around their food and what it does for their bodies well, you know what, maybe I do want to have that ice cream and I am in a deficit, but I can make it fit. I know that the trade-off will be maybe I'll be a bit more hungry later on, but I'm here with my granddaughter and this is what I want to do. It's important for me now. You've got the power to make that choice, but you're making an informed decision versus you're going out and you're just kind of eating everything in sight, whatever you want, and you're feeling really ill. I think, I guess you could, but I really am such a big advocate of, what you've just described, because I mean, you are now kind of driving the bus, right? Instead of just getting off at a stop when you're told to. And it's much more empowering. And you can live like that. I think that's where I was battling to find the words if you need to, the best laid strategy fails if you can't implement. So if our clients can do something and they only eat twice a day, let's say hypothetically, and that's all they can do, but they're getting all their food in, that is so much better than somebody trying to eat 6 times a day and then failing at that and feeling terrible because they haven't achieved their goals. So back to the point it's really about making good nutrition choices and enabling them to be livable, because we have to live, we are busy people with lives and demands, and we really don't want to suck the joy out of life. And this is a way of conceding if we need to, which we don't always, which is the other thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the example of someone getting ice cream with their granddaughter, right? And I think so. We think about food as fuel, right? And there are a lot of people out there that say like you need to think beyond food is just fuel, but if we really think about it, food is fuel for the body, right? But it can also be fuel for the mind and the soul, right? These experiences that we have around food, whether it be, out with your granddaughter getting ice cream and it's a special time, and you have that opportunity then to make the decision and say, I'm going to have this ice cream now. And that means one of two things. Either I'm just going to be a little bit over on my calorie target for the day. No big deal, because this is an experience I really want to have right now. Or you can say, all right, I'm going to shuffle some things around in what I had planned to have for the day. Maybe instead of, steak with dinner that's high fat, I'm going to have chicken. I'm going to make some alterations. I might be a little bit hungrier later in the day, but that's okay. You have options and you have decisions. And I think that it's so freeing for people when they realize that they can fit stuff into their everyday life.
It is. And they almost, I had a client, he was like, well, you know what? I'm not going to give up this, and I'm not going to give up this, and I'm not going to give up that. And I said, well, you don't have to give up any of it, And what we need to do is just find a way of, if it's non-negotiable for you, it's your life. I mean, absolutely. Let's find a way of working around it. Maybe it's about adding something even, it's about, let's add nutrient dense foods to this meal that you're eating so we can improve the nutrient profile, So again, I think what I really love about Fiercely Fueled and why I became such an advocate and why I'm here today is it kind of undid a lot of the conditioning and the thinking I had around food and dieting and losing weight for me had to be restrictive. I mean, you had to be really hungry or you weren't succeeding. It's like I didn't really kind of get my head around the fact that, well, you can still feel great and fueled and still make progress in terms of your body composition goals, if you want to, but you feel so much better if you're fueling yourself than restricting yourself. And you feel so much better if you're eating beautiful nutrients. So for me, there's also a lot around, and that circles back to the cheat meal, is that it's really also, people feel so terrible when they have these cheat meals because nobody goes and cheats on a big salad. They go and cheat on like a burger or ice cream or donuts or all of these things. And, that's also what makes it, it's the volume, but it's the fats and the salts and the preservatives and these type of things. And it also makes you very aware of how well your body responds to good food. And if you're nourishing yourself properly, there's space in your day and in your week to have something delicious, but you kind of want it less because you're not craving stuff. And I remember you speaking about this very early on when we started working together about, if you're well fueled, you are far less likely to want to crave these things and like end up in a cheat meal binge kind of cycle.
Yes, because that's another thing that frequently happens with people is they say, I'm going to have a cheat meal today. And then things go a little bit overboard, right? And then they feel the need to restrict the next day. So then they're restricting their food and then they're hungry. And we know that hunger is one of those things that leads people into binging, or maybe not even technically a binge, but just overeating, right? So we get stuck in this cycle then. And one of the things that I have found just after years and years of helping athletes be well fueled for life, not just for their training, but for life, is that these cravings for these foods that they were having just start to go away. They start to be eliminated because why were you craving those foods? Because you were probably hungry, and they're calorically dense foods, and our brains are very powerful places. They know what's going on. We have all of these mechanisms that come into play when we get excessively hungry. And that is essentially why dieting is so hard, because our body's trying to fight this loss of tissue, right? Wants to keep energy available to us. So when we're able to be fueled for the long haul, right? Not just for a week or a month, but when we're talking about years on end, where we're really fueling our bodies, a lot of the stuff that used to be a big role in our lives in diet culture starts to go away automatically.
And I also think that's one of the reasons why dieting, or this concept of dieting, there's a lot of fear involved as well. Like, oh my gosh, am I going to be hungry? I'm going to have to give up all of this food. And we make a joke about hake and broccoli, and I know you like broccoli, but so it's like there is a lot of fear, and once you kind of go, well, you take that away and you give people the knowledge that they need around their food, and you can, I'm battling for words here because I'm so passionate about this. I can't get the words out, but it's so often that we, diets are sold on quick fixes and quick results, and do this 30-day transformation and do this 3 months thing. And I honestly, when I started really being very serious about my nutrition for powerlifting, I really did. I thought I would do a 3-month transformation and end up with abs at the end of those 3 months. And I have abs now, you just can't see them, but it's 7 years later. But this is the thing, is like I really thought that this, you had to have this extreme restriction and be desperately unhappy and eat hake and broccoli in order to be fueled. And I couldn't have been more wrong. So sorry, I went a bit off topic there and I'm ranting a bit. But again, this is this is what I learned, until you.
This is the stuff that we're sold, right? This is the stuff that the fitness industry and the diet industry has sold to us, that it would be totally normal to have a massive transformation of your body in 3 months. Now, can you do that? Is that realistic? Oh, I don't really think it is realistic. Have people done it? Sure. But what we need to look at then is what happens in the context of us being strength athletes, because the faster your body changes as a strength athlete, the more sacrifice there's probably going to be to your strength, particularly if we're talking about weight loss and body composition changes. If we're talking about losing body fat, there's going to be a huge trade-off in performance if it happens fast. So if we're making really fast changes to our body in the form of losing body fat, there's going to be a big trade-off in our performance. And so these ideas of these transformations that are going to happen for people, especially people that are strength athletes, or maybe they don't even consider themselves a strength athlete, but they're someone who lifts and they care about building strength, you're going to lose strength doing that kind of stuff. So it's really not realistic. And we're sold essentially these lies because people want our money.
Right. I mean, and I think it would extend beyond even the strength athletes. I think anyone who's interested in performing, and we were having a discussion around. I saw an advert for a RD here in South Africa advertising really dramatic weight loss results, and I was asking her. I said, "Is this realistic?" And she said, well, "Yes, it is." And in theory, it could be, but it was just so beyond the realms of what anybody could live at or sustain or maybe even adhere to for any period of time, that while you put these numbers into a calculator, yes, you should generate this amount of fat loss, but there's a person at the end of those numbers who lives a life, that has a family, that has emotions, that has a whole bunch of other stuff going on. And again, I think that's what I really, really support and love, and I'm really passionate about from a Fiercely Fueled New perspective, is that it's not only about the numbers. Yes, our clients have goals and we want to help them feel fueled, but we want to help them do that within the context of their life and the context of how much bandwidth they have at the time, because not everybody has the same amount of bandwidth, if you want to call it that.
You brought up a really good point, that these are people at the end, right? They're people. And what has a person learned who has white knuckled it through 3 months of dieting? What have they learned? They have not learned how to properly eat. They have learned how to eat for a short period of time, which is another reason why I don't do meal plans, but that's an entirely different podcast episode here. But the idea is that you need to learn how to do this for the long run. You need to learn how to implement this into your lifestyle, even if you're in a dieting phase. And we need to get rid of this idea that, okay, I've decided I need to lose 50 pounds and it's going to be 50 consecutive pounds. It's not going to work that way, right? We're going to,
right. Oh yeah. Hello. I know this.
We're going to break that up into phases, right? We're going to say, okay, well, this is the speed at which you can probably lose weight and still maintain your strength and feel good and still have energy for your family or your kids or work or whatever. And so maybe we're going to get 20 of those pounds in the beginning. Then we're going to go into a diet break. Then we're going to go back to it. Because when we do that for the long haul, that's when it starts to get really, really challenging and we start to have loss of strength. But the other thing that's really important to think about with these transformations where people lose a ridiculous amount of weight in a short period of time is that research has shown us the faster weight loss occurs, the more likely you are to gain it back and then some. So what was the purpose of white knuckling a 90-day diet where you're miserable, you're suffering, and then you're going to put on more body fat within the next year?
Honestly, I mean, that is a whole other podcast as well. But honestly, I think it's not in the best interest of the client, these challenges. And if somebody is trying to sell you supplements and massive weight loss and in a really short space of time, we learn, right? I've done this. There's that saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And this holds true in this case for so much. It's much more difficult to sell to someone that it might take a year to get to where you want to be. It might take 2. It might mean that you need to first eat more before you can eat less, that's also another discussion. But nobody sells the reality of it. And I think that, and also a lot of the things that we help people with are things that are very difficult to monetize. So getting somebody to have an extra 8 hours sleep, you can't put that in a supplement store and sell it. So people don't really shout out about it. Or, can you wake up in the morning and go eat your breakfast in the sunlight? These things all play into health and well-being and recovery and being better fueled. But, it's not really as marketable as, there's join my 30-day challenge now and lose X amount of weight and buy these things. And I guarantee you will be a happy, smiling girl in a bikini at the end of it.
Exactly. And I think that the idea of cheat meals plays into that too, right? Like someone's like, oh, I can do this. I'm going to follow this plan and I'm going to have this cheat meal once a week and everything is going to be great because I still get to eat the foods that I enjoy. And it sounds great on the surface, but the reality is there's a trade-off that's harming you, right? In some fashion. Whether you're developing this idea of morality around your food, whether you're getting yourself into a binge and restrict cycle, or simply just not learning how to make this a regular part of a healthy lifestyle.
Or you get to the end of the 30 days and you don't look like that girl in the bikini, then you feel like a failure and then you don't try and then, your health doesn't go anywhere. So yeah, 100% agree with you.
So to sum it up, I think we would say that the term cheat meal is a bit misguided and probably needs to go away.
I agree. Nobody's going to get cheat meals from me.
Right. But is it totally within their lifestyle as an athlete to be able to have untracked meals, go out, enjoy themselves, enjoy their lives, eat foods they like? Absolutely. It's just, there's a better way of going about it. And there's a better way of thinking about it than planning for a cheat meal.
Absolutely. If you listen to anything, just listen to those last 5 seconds.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, Pia. I always love talking to you about these topics.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
If you like the show, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my free email newsletter at guide.fiercelyfueled.com/podcast. In addition to updates, articles, and behind the scenes tips from my team and I, my email newsletter subscribers also get my pre and post training meals guide to help you position yourself to get stronger faster than you ever thought possible. You can get it all for free at guide.fiercelyfueled.com/podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Fiercely Fueled Nutrition. And lastly, this show is meant to make the strength world a better, stronger, and healthier place. Please share it with your friends and subscribe to the show.